Greeting, astrology friends and family. Shannon Gill here today with a presentation on the October eclipses in 2023. So I'm going to be sharing screens here right away, and we're going to jump in. All right, here we are. So this is a very exciting eclipse season for us here deep in the heart of Texas because we are in the path of totality. So we are naming this series of eclipses, which has begun with this Aries Taurus eclipse this October, November, and will continue on into next year. And the eclipse that is falling on April 8th is a total solar eclipse right here in the path of totality in southwestern Texas. So mark your date, your calendar, because we're going to be hosting a 3-day symposium. And it's going to be just a really expansive time to utilize the energies of the portal, to really understand the capacity that we have as a community, as a one mind, to affect the collective field, and to just really celebrate where we've arrived on the planet together. So October, let's see, it's the 8th. So I think it's like the 5th through the 9th. But if you're getting my newsletter, then you'll get all the information. And we'll have many events up to the actual big event there in April. So today our presentation is Eclipse of the Heart, Portals of Change. And you see my photo here with my beloved Russell. He and I actually gave this presentation in person a couple of times this week, and he couldn't be with me today. But I wanted to go ahead and include him because he is the master behind a lot of the beautiful visuals that you're going to see. So going ahead and jumping in. Many of you know me, maybe some of you don't. My name is Shannon Gill von Ohlhausen, and I'm a certified evolutionary astrologer. I'm also an archetypal astrologer. I blend the two. I find that working with archetypes helps us to tap into more of the mythical journey that we are on and to, put our personal story in its rightful place on a shelf, because we are definitely at this point in evolutionary history where we're being called to ascend into more of an organismic consciousness. I'm also a Jungian counselor and life coach. I have a degree in Buddhist psychology, which was my sort of first love, and dance, music, and art therapy. I reunited with my beloved, my twin flame in 2015, and we founded the Shift Foundation, which is our nonprofit that we do all kinds of events, teaching, ceremonies, workshops, kids camps, dances, to assist in this shift in consciousness that's happening at this very moment in evolutionary history. I'm also the founder of the Rhythm Sanctuary Ecstatic Dance Movement in Boulder, seeded the dance in Denver back in 2005 and 6. And so dance has been a big part of my life, and you will definitely be experiencing a lot of high vibrational dance and embodiment if you come to any of our events, as we are the vessel of consciousness, and the more that we open up to the eternal light above, the more we activate our eternal light within, then we bring that eternal light to the earth, which is essentially what we're doing together at this moment on the planet. So yes, the shiftfoundation.org if you want to find out a little bit more about Russell and I's mission and how you can support and how you can be a part. And in any of our presentations, I just invite you to really accept what resonates and dismiss what does not. We're going to be introducing you to a lot of concepts that may or may not fully align with your own belief system. And we're really in this time of emerging, intersection of beliefs, philosophies, timelines, to where we're needing to loosen our grip a little bit upon anything definitive, anything that separates or divides us. So that's my invitation for us today. And this is just a beautiful image of quadrality here that Russell created that is just really sort of exemplifying what I'm saying there about the intersection of all the different religions in history, all of the different philosophies, esoteric truth, the occult, and how they work actually really beautifully is a synastry. All right, here we go. every time I see this, it brings tears. There's just something about the magnitude of this moment in evolutionary history that is almost inconceivable, where we stand here at the cusp at this time of the great turning. And Russell just has a remarkable way of creating these experiences using the technology, which is very Aquarian, of sound and light and music, and to just activate the soul, activate the frequencies within. So thank you, beloved. So here's our outline for today, our takeaways, what we're going to be discussing, and the journey will be on. So we're going to just have some basic guidelines and concepts. We'll be talking about the intersection of astrology and astronomy. Then we'll be looking at the changing celestial canvas and the shift of the eons, the age of Aquarius, with the storm winds rising. So it feels very important to me always when we're talking about any particular moment in time, like an eclipse, that we have the backdrop, which is the canvas behind that the particular lunation falls upon, to give it more of a contextual purpose and understand, how to work with the energy more mindfully and how it plays out and pertains to the larger cycles that we're in. Then we'll shift in specifically to the eclipse material. Why does the sun blink? We'll go over just briefly what is an eclipse, this particular eclipse cycle, some historical eclipses, the meaning of this one as far as the astrological signs that they will be falling upon, and then closing up with what we're being asked to do at this time on the planet, which is the restoration of the temple and where we will be going from here. So jumping right in, part one, the changing celestial canvas, the backdrop of the cycles. So the shift of the eons, the cycles, ages, and decans. So if you've worked with me, then you know that I'm always going to weave into your personal reading, when we're looking at your personal blueprint, the larger evolutionary blueprint. Again, so that we have context to understand, why are we who we are? Why are we, being called to this particular purpose at this point in time? Where are the wounds originating from that we are sifting through and we're working through our shadow material? And how do we most effectively and efficiently employ our mission to serve these larger cycles? And so this is an image that Russell also created that sort of shows the rising and the falling breath of Hashem, which is another way of discussing the astrological ages. So if you're not familiar with the astrological ages, they are epochs of time that characterize the collective consciousness of a period. And the period is 2,150 years long. So it is why I say that here we are standing at the cusp between the Pisces age and the Aquarian age, that it's almost inconceivable, the magnitude and the colossal nature of where we stand and what we're being asked to do as pioneers of dying to one age and birthing another. So this is a way that we can sort of see it on a graph with the cycle of the sun and its rotation and how it loops around a barycenter with the star Sirius, which is our sister sun, is actually the mechanics or the astronomy that creates the ages, where we are, falling asleep and going into the dark ages, the lead ages, and then waking up as a humanity into the golden age, over and over again for thousands of years since the beginning of time. So I'm going to let someone else talk a little bit more in depth about what exactly is an astrological age and what its significance is.
The great year. There is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. Lost civilizations, the Golden Age, Shangri-La. Might there be some truth to these ancient tales? Our ancestors spoke of a grand cycle, bringing about high ages of enlightenment and low ages of darkness, marked by the movement of the heavens. They said that our sun curves through space, moving in a great orbit of its own, pulling the Earth and other planets along with it. If the Earth did move along with the Sun on a curved path through space, we might see the same precession of the equinox through the zodiac and changing of the pole stars that the lunisolar wobble theory now attempts to explain. But it would not be caused by the Earth's wobbling independent of the Sun. It would be caused by the whole solar system curving through space. Another reference frame is at work.
We believe that our Sun moves in space with our entire solar system, that the axis of our Earth remains aligned to a point in space where that is fixed in respect to the equinoxes, it's fixed in respect to all the solstices, so that basically our entire system moves around a point in space.
Just as day and night are caused by the spinning Earth, and the seasons are caused by the Earth's orbit around the Sun, some ancient cultures believed there's an even larger cycle that influences the rise and fall of civilizations. Although these cultures were highly advanced, they seemed to decline into a worldwide dark age. Ancient Egypt, the Greek and Roman empires, the megalithic and Mayan civilizations all collapsed and their knowledge was lost. To Plato and others, this fall of civilization was an inevitable part of the cyclical nature of the great year.
The evidence for these advanced civilizations is almost universal in the sense that they seem to be at their height very near the beginning.
Just as day and night are caused by the spinning Earth, and the seasons are caused by the Earth's orbit around the Sun, some ancient cultures believed there's an even larger cycle that influences the rise and fall of civilizations.
There is a cycle corresponding to spring, summer, autumn, winter, and you might say that this prevails metaphysically or spiritually to the human race itself.
This cycle of the ages was given different names by different cultures. To the Greeks, it was the Great Year, broken down into 4 periods: the Iron, Bronze, Silver, and Golden Ages, each age having its own distinct characteristics. The saints and sages of ancient India called it the Yuga cycle. The Babylonians and Egyptians had still other names for it, and the Greco-Roman Mithraeid culture identified it simply by its observed celestial movement, the precession of the equinox.
Okay, so, I think pretty much everybody has heard a little bit about the age of Aquarius, but I'm not so sure that it's very clear. And which, Russell and I have our Shift Foundation. I actually purchased that domain name over 20 years ago and sat on it knowing that this time was coming, as I have a 0 degrees Aquarius ascendant. And somehow my incarnation is to be sort of a translator of this time. And as I said, the magnitude is inconceivable. No one has lived through the Aquarian age. So we are literally having to birth without a template, which is why astrology is so invaluable, because it's codes, it's symbolism. So if you start to learn and be curious about archetypes and learn that language, then we can start to unveil the mystery of the future. So, here we are at the cusp of the Pisces and Aquarian age. And a lot of people ask, well, when exactly did it end and when exactly does it begin? And, the truth is that no one knows for certain. Even amongst astrologers, there's a lot of ideas about this. The way that makes most sense to me to see it as a spectrum. I think about, if somebody asks, when does the sun rise? Is it when the luminescent glow begins to appear on the horizon, or is it when the actual orb pops over? And, again, looking at the archetypes, we can start to see, well, what is the archetype of Aquarius? Well, it's revolution and it's awakening and it's radical individuation. So we can think back to the 60s, right? What was going on with the Cultural Revolution? That definitely had some of the semblance or the resonance of this Aquarian archetype. So, whenever we think about where exactly are we, I don't think it matters so much, because we are cusping between 2 ages which, by the way, if you didn't catch it in the video, the ages are 2,150 years long. So the cusp period could very well be 50 or 100 years. And the most important thing to understand is what we're letting go of, what we're leaving behind, and what we're birthing. So we're going to talk about that just a little bit more. So, as I said, learning about the archetypes, the astrology, Aquarius is actually the Kumbha. It's the storm. It's the storm of awakening, because the Pisces age is the dark ages where we've been. Humanity has been asleep for 2,000 years, and now we're coming up out of this. Is the time of the Great Awakening. The original video in this presentation. This is something that is absolutely magnificent. However, alchemically, how do we have these massive shifts in the collective, in our own lives? It is through an alchemical process that often comes from some kind of a destabilization or some kind of a contrasting energy. And literally, Pisces is a water sign, Aquarius is an air sign. The two coming together creates a storm. So here we are with this new age of Aquarius, the return to the singularity, which is the Purusha, or the one mind consciousness. And I'm just kind of curious, how many of you really know much about this new age? And so I thought I would share a little bit of this, first a quote and then another little fun video clip. The great Alan Leo on the New Age, he says, the great cycle of precession is concerned with the spiritual evolution, and the dawning Aquarian age will mark the turning point of the cycle, the beginning of humanity's slow ascent back to the realm of pure spirit.
When the moon
Just have a little laugh.
is in the 7th house, and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets, and love will steer the stars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius.
Harmony and understanding, sympathy and trust abounding. No more falsehoods or derisions, golden living, dreams of visions,
Mystic crystal revelations, and the mind's true liberation.
Aquarius.
Aquarius.
When the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets, and love will steer the stars.
This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. Aquarius.
It's Aquarius, baby. We ain't talking about no Scorpio. We ain't talking about we ain't talking about no Scorpio.
Okay. Russell and I like to throw that into our live workshops, because humor is definitely going to be an important component as we're shifting through this sort of darker transformative time through the birth canal of this new age, leaving behind the old. Someone that I studied with most recently said, the darkness doesn't have any humor. So this new age of enlightenment is where we get to take on our Buddha nature, where we get a chance to see everything through the lens of illusion. And I think that's really important, that as well as the remembrance and the embodiment of knowing that we are eternal, because I'm not going to gloss over it. These are intense times, right? It is very typical that when one age ends and another age begins, it's a complete end of an era. And it is quite typical that there are world wars and pandemics and things of that nature. So just a little bit about the detail of what we're leaving and what we're entering, just because, again, I feel like it's really crucial that we understand. Also, I feel like it helps us to contextualize the level of chaos that is currently on the planet. So the Pisces age, we can look at the glyph of Pisces. It is the two fish that are swimming in opposite directions. We can see that this was an age of duality, where there was an illusion of a separation between matter and spirit. So essentially, man's down here on earth, and God was somewhere sort of ominous up in the sky. So it could be seen as an age of faith, right? I believe there's something that's greater than me outside of myself. So the outside of myself is the important distinction here. If we feel or we're told or programmed that the power is outside of ourselves, then we're more easily controlled, which is essentially what has happened in this last 2,000 years, is that it was a hierarchical paradigm where there were maybe a few, at the top, sort of dictating the puppet strings, and humanity working is sort of like in a machine or a matrix-like existence. So it was a 2,000-year age of corruption and deception and manipulation, subjugation of the masculine principle over the feminine. I'm not talking about gender here. I'm talking about energies. And we know that masculine direction without the feminine counterpart is completely destructive, which is why we've been destroying the planet and ourselves. So hallelujah, this Pisces age has come to an end, again, the dark ages, and we're merging into the Aquarian age, the age of light, which we can see as the return of the Purusha, which is a Vedic term for the one mind consciousness. I like to call this organismic consciousness, where we all remember and constellate with the knowing that we're actually all one organism. The elements, the cosmos, all of humanity, the earth herself. It is the return of the divine androgyne, the unification, or the balance of polarity, divine feminine and masculine. It's as if those two fish swimming in opposite directions turn and face each other and recognize each other in the mirror, which is why Libra is such an important archetype, which is where the eclipses are falling, and we're going to obviously get into that material. So this alchemical unification and awakening that's happening is what returns the sacred waters to the earth, and that is the water bearer there. And so if the key phrase for the Pisces age was I believe, in the Aquarian age it is I know, because I am. So this is the prophesized time of the return of Christ. However, it is the return of Christ consciousness, which is within, which is the circuits being flipped on, the pineal gland opening up, and us returning to direct unification with source, with the light. And this is the prophesized time of revelations of the apocalypse. It's really, really crucial that we understand some of these basic foundational principles about evolution, that we evolve through alchemy. And so we can trust that by leaning in and observing nature. We can't have summer all year. We have summer and we have winter. I've taught my children this since the beginning. What happens in the fall? Everything starts to decay. Everything starts to die and to return to the journey to the underworld of winter, the compost. And then, of course, we always know and can trust that the spring returns. And so whenever we're dying to one age and birthing another one, we have got to keep this in mind, that birth is painful. It is dark, often bloody, but yet absolutely organic, natural, and magnificent. So the quote, all these are but the beginning of the birth pains. In a lot of ways, when people ask the question, well, when exactly did it start? When did it end? I feel like some marker points are the 60s, then 2012, with the end of the Mayan calendar. So these different, systems lining up. And then obviously 2020 feels like it was definitely the beginning of the end and the towers beginning to fall. So now we're going to hone our vision in a little bit more directly to another important aspect that's happening. And then we're going to get into the actual eclipses. So when we're talking about transits, the planets that are transiting, they're moving in the sky today. They are transpersonal. They affect all of us, the collective. The inner planets are more personal and they affect us, as an individual. So the planet Pluto, which represents the archetype of Scorpio, which is the dark mother archetype, which has to do with that process of regeneration, of transmutation of dark into light, of pulling up the toxic roots, of revealing the shadow, of transformation, of regeneration, like a snake shedding the skin, is the last planet to move into Aquarius. of the outer planets. And it has started this process in March of this year. It moved into Aquarius for 3 months, and then it retrograded back to some of the last degrees of Capricorn. It's going to do this 5 times. Oh, yeah. It's going to do this 5 times. Yes, onto my ascendant. And so it's this interesting sort of 2 steps forward into the future and 1 step back. And what it really feels like, because Pluto is about death and rebirth, and Aquarius is humanity, that we are definitely now inching into actually progressing through this birth portal. I feel like we've been having Braxton Hicks. It's been like false labor. And that's a little bit of this dance with the retrograde action. And so this is something that we just need to know, is that it feels in a lot of ways. And we get this message from so many places. The elders of the Native Americans are saying, this is the last hour. And our choices and our alignment are absolutely crucial for the outcome. And we'll be talking about that. Why is Pluto important? It takes 248 years to go around the zodiac. So, it hasn't been in Aquarius for 248 years. So we look back and we say, because astrology is a history of cycles, and this is where we can, get into predictive astrology, which for me is, astrology is a meeting of fate and free will. But if you know a storm is coming, right, you put on a raincoat. So, what happened last time Pluto moved into Aquarius? Well, it was the birth of our nation. And nations actually have birth charts as well. And so the United States is going through our own rebirth of our country, our own death process of our country. So I'm sure you're already sensing that, whether you knew that we were in this process or not. There's the actual chart of America's birth, and one of the original astrology charts too of the original, the founding of our country. So essentially, Pluto moving into Aquarius, it's sort of like this flirting with the light. The darkness is being drawn in. You notice everything is getting more extreme, the light and the dark. That's this elevation into this cauldron of transformation collectively. And many of us are waking up. And that's that pineal gland. That's us activating our internal technology, our internal circuitry. And there's others in the collective consciousness that are going to get burned up in the flame because they're not ready on an evolutionary level. They're still asleep in many ways. And that's okay. No judgment. We're all one consciousness, and we're eternal. So that's just where everybody is on their own path here. And certainly it does feel like we are a bit in the eye of the storm right now. It's such a surreal time where it's sort of like, you look around and it looks like a majority of the people are like business as usual. But if you're like us, you're like, wow, everything has changed so much, so dramatically. Everything's very surreal. The veil is very thin, especially during an eclipse portal. And we're inching closer and closer and closer to, again, needing to downshift, because we're going to be going through that deeper distillation alchemically of our reality. And, as an evolutionary astrologer, we're looking at the different levels of consciousness. So we're not just straddling the ages, we're straddling the levels of consciousness. The 3rd dimensional reality could be seen as the consensus, where you just like going along with the herd. You're looking for your information and your guidance from outside because you're still programmed that you're asleep. So whether it's the doctor or, the church or the government or even just the nighttime news to dictate the reality. That's the 3rd dimensional state, which is very much about matter and very solid. 4th dimensional state is where we start to wake up. It has more to do with our emotional nature. We're starting to put pieces together, tune into synchronicity, see through some of the programming. This is where the shadow work happens. And then the 5th dimensional reality is where we have access to right now, where we actually remove all of the obstacles to the flow of light within. We become transceivers, receiving and transmitting light upon the planet, activating the new Earth grid, which is just beneath the surface of the fictitious, of the manipulated grid, with all of the 5G and all of that attempt. because those that were in power and control in the Pisces age will hold on to every last strand as long as they can. And another point that I feel like is important to make, that anytime I'm talking about something that sounds dual, like, a small faction of the people orchestrating something, some type of agenda, I always am holding that in the frame of non-duality, that from a one mind perspective, there's actually intelligence in the darkness. They're playing a role. How often do we wake up in the morning and be like, it's a great day to evolve, let's heal today? Yeah, like never. It's often, usually, if not always, through suffering, through loss, through a trauma. It's that enantiodrama, that Carl Jung term, the pulling back of the rubber band. It gets so taut that whenever it releases, it shoots us way forward, a quantum leap into the future. And that's where we are right now. So those of us that are ascending, which we all have access to do, and it is our birthright into this fifth dimensional reality, will be the ones weaving the new fabric of the new world, and will be connecting to infinite intelligence, abundance, creativity. So we will have all of the tools, and the path just reveals itself magically because we're in the flow of the Godhead. So the synchronicities and the instant karma are just upon us with every choice that we make. And this is an example of a new earth technology community. This is Oroville. Russell and I had the honor of going to visit India, and it's a futuristic utopian city. This is an aerial view of the model. It's a replica of the galaxy. The center is the Matrimandir, which is this absolutely majestic gold meditation dome where there is no dogma, there is no religion. It's simply meditating on the light within. They have their own monetary system, their own technologies. It's off the grid. It's unbelievable. And so it's an example of what is possible and where we're moving in this. All right, part 2. Why does the sun blink? Eclipses, history, and meaning. So this is an aerial view of an eclipse that Russell found, that we just found, that was sort of fascinating, that it actually appears as if the sun is blinking. And now here we are with this particular current eclipse cycle. And as I mentioned, here in Texas, it is going to be that we are in the path of totality. October 14th and 28th is the eclipse cycle that's upon us right now. And then the big one again is April 8th. And so right here in the heart of Texas. And again, mark your calendars for that April eclipse to come down and party Texas style with us and be a part of creating history. So before we talk about the psychological and soulful energies, what are eclipses? So most people are probably aware, but in case you're not, it's basically an obscuration of the light between the luminaries, the earth, the sun, and the sky. And an eclipse occurs when there is a new or a full moon that is conjunct what we call in evolutionary astrology the lunar nodes, the nodal axis. And so it is basically whenever one body is moving into the shadow of the other. And, probably more easily to remember the nodal axis, which is essentially points in space, intersection lines, that just remember it is the destiny line. And that twice a year, there is a new and a full moon. Sometimes they come in pairs, most times in pairs. Sometimes there's 3 in a row, conjunct the nodal axis. And conjunct means right on top. And so they're just like in the same point in the sky. And the destiny line basically tells the destiny of our soul. So everybody has their own destiny line in their birth chart. If you've worked with me, it's the South Node and the North Node. We talk about the evolution of your soul through many lifetimes. There's also a transiting destiny line, which is the collective soul. So it's interesting. So it's when the transiting destiny line, which actually takes 18 and a half years to go around the zodiac, whenever it has a new or a full moon in a particular axis, then that's whenever we're going to be doing our sort of evolutionary collective work in connection to our bigger, deeper soul purpose and path. And so what we want to remember is that what the ancients used to feel, actually they feared eclipses, is that they were aware right away that it was the time of the greatest change. The magnitude of the occurrences that would happen during that period took on much more weight than if it were just any old time or any other full moon or new moon. They actually feared eclipses because if you think about it, they lived and died by the planets, by the seasons. And so if all of a sudden, the sun is turning black or the moon is turning red, that might feel really intense, especially because then they would see the reference point of massive change, the beginning of a war, the murder of their king, a storm that would happen during this eclipse time. So they would actually do rituals and try to ward off these, what they perceived as dark energies. Because literally what it is about sort of the darkening of the light. And, this is again, an example, an opportunity to see things non-dually. It's almost as if basically we're talking about the obscuration of the light. The light is our consciousness. And it's known that during an eclipse portal, the energies are going to speed up. It's going to take us from where we are to somewhere in the future. That's why we call the eclipse season a portal. So that's what a portal is, to take us from where we are to somewhere out in the future. We have an opportunity to take quantum leaps. And it's known as a time where the grounds are shifting, the energies are being reshuffled in our lives, very large endings, very large beginnings. Basically, just the material that arises during an eclipse has to do with your own soul's deeper work and purpose. Everything takes on more charge and more meaning and affects us for longer periods of times. And so, it's also been said that it's time when the gates are open. There's many souls that will cross over during eclipses. And so my little brother and my father both passed during an eclipse season because they were already on their way out. And so again, the energies just accelerated that process. So whatever you have going on in your life, the energy is going to accelerate it. So this is where it's very important to be very mindful and very discriminating about your thoughts and your emotions, because they will be amplified. And, monks used to say that thoughts, actions, and deeds take on 10,000 times their weight during an eclipse. So we have an opportunity to take a quantum leap. I've had incredible opportunities seemingly come from nowhere, drop into my life, really magical things. And so it's sort of kind of like a Uranus aspect, expect the unexpected, that the catalyzation of change is upon us, which can feel destabilizing. So if you're someone that studies astrology and maybe you've had experiences like I have where you've had loss during eclipses, it can bring up anxiety because it's a feeling of being out of control and you don't know what's going to come. And it usually comes really abruptly. But again, this is where our sort of existential anchor is really called into necessity, to trust the process, to trust that even when something or someone is taken from our life, in the highest form, it's all perfect. And sometimes we can't see that when we're in the dark, right? And so this is where we surrender. We surrender to trust, but it's also really smart, I think, and important to slow down during an eclipse, because not everybody is as conscious. Remember, we have different levels of consciousness. And certainly right now on the planet, there's a lot of unconsciousness. There's a lot of darkness. The third dimensional reality is in a period of decay. And so the shadow is just coming out like gangbusters right now. So in an eclipse, it's going to bring and amplify that. I had some cars behind me the other night at night playing chicken on the highway and flashing their lights and weaving all over and going around each other. I was just like, it's already terrible and scary, but to do it during an eclipse, it's like, these are when accidents can happen. So really just being very mindful, paying attention to signs, because things and people can come in that have their players in the larger game of your soul's evolution. And, essentially we're all trying to wake up and remember that we are the creator experiencing and creating itself in form. This is the new paradigm of where we are in the Aquarian age, is waking up to that, waking up to seeing through the eyes of the universe, that we are infinite, that we are ultimately here to co-create with the divine, to create the new divine blueprint. So these can be very, very powerful passages. So here we stand right now in this portal. We are already in the portal and we're walking through a doorway. A little more humor. It's all a ride, right? It's all an illusion or a play of the one mind. So now we are going to go ahead and dive directly into this particular eclipse season. So here's the gate. Here are the dates of the portal. So it opened up with the fiery full moon in Aries. Who here felt that moon? Russell and I were like, whoa, this is a very, very powerful eclipse. It definitely feels like I've already mentioned this, that we are getting very, very close to going through the sort of most direct and intense part of this alchemical birth process, which is also a death process. Anybody else feeling that? So the eclipse coming up this weekend, October 14th, is an annular solar eclipse meaning new moon at 21 degrees Libra, annular meaning partial, but it will definitely be visible. It's going to look like, probably about three quarters of the sun covered over. You do need your eclipse glasses. The 28th of October will be the lunar eclipse, the full moon at 5 degrees Taurus. And then the gate will close November 13th with a new moon in Scorpio at 20 degrees. And so you're going to start the integration process around that time, is what you're going to notice. All right, so here we are with the first eclipse coming up this Saturday, solar eclipse at 21 degrees Libra, October 14th. So Libra, Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, the cardinal axis, you're going to be the ones that are going to feel this the most. The nodal axis, which creates the eclipses, shifted into the Aries Libra axis July 17th of this year. And so as I said, 18 and a half year rotation, every year and a half, it goes through an axis into a new axis of polarity. And it's better to think about, instead of 12 separate signs, 6 axes of polarity. This is the axis of Aries, the warrior, Libra, the lover. Aries, me, Libra, we. And so these are the archetypal arenas that we are going to be exploring for the next year and a half, because all the eclipses will be in Aries, Libra, aside from the very last one in Taurus, which is going to be the full moon lunar eclipse that we will have on the 28th. So let's dive into this Libra archetype. I love this image. It is so powerful. When we think about the sun enters Libra, that is at the fall equinox. When the sun enters Aries, its polarity point, we're at the spring equinox. So this is the axis that cuts the seasons in half, the year of the wheel in half. And so the first 6 signs, starting with Aries, the warrior, if we think about, archetypally, Aries can be like, it's the birth of the season. It's the true new year, right? The sun enters Aries on March 21st. That's when the plants return in the Northern Hemisphere. It's like the I am consciousness. I am separate. I am separate from the cosmic womb of Pisces, which from where I have just come, the compost, the dark soil, the death. The seed burst up into Aries. I am independent. I am pioneering. I will defend and fight for life. The first 6 signs from there are about the evolution of the individual. We land at Virgo, mastery level, and realize we can only go so far alone. And we're winding up that first half of the year and we hit Libra, which is the fall equinox. From there, the path of involution begins. This is the midpoint between the individual self, Aries, and the greater self, Pisces, between the material and the spiritual. Here we repair in Libra for the long way back home. It's about the balance of the seasons. It's also about the balance of your life. So here's some just information on the glyphs. There's the scales. Interesting. If you turn the glyph of Libra upside down, it is a yoke. It's about the re-yoking us back to source. As I said, the Aries is the birth of the individual. It's like being shot out the birth canal. When we get to Libra, we're halfway there, halfway around the journey of evolution. And then we return back into winter, or we could say into the cosmic womb of Pisces. So a few more images here. It's in Egyptian, it's called the Shin. It's the sun over the horizon, the earth in the sky. And there's Inanna with the rod and the ring. And then this Egyptian myth, many of you have probably heard about this, the weighing of the heart, the goddess Ma'at, that we're really being called with this Libra archetype to learn to dance with duality, to balance light and dark, to stop with the division. The longer that we're perpetuating any form of division, the longer we're perpetuating the original wound, which is the illusion of separation, right? That we talked about in the Pisces age, the two fish swimming in opposite direction, asleep to their unitive consciousness. So this is why it's important to hold those larger cycles as the backdrop, as we're now honing in and narrowing our focus onto this particular Libra solar eclipse. We cannot ascend into the higher realms, into the fifth dimension, so long as we are living in duality. We need to practice neutrality, rather. And another one of Russell's silly little glyphs. Judge not, lest thee be judged. Discernment is necessary now more than ever. And if we don't get it right, then we are just sent off and to be recycled, we'll say. So another very important component of Libra is relationships. And I'm very passionate about this area. I see relationship as the catalyzing force of ascension. So I kind of pointed to a moment ago about, the creation story and a lot, we're told this and taught this as children. They say there was nothing and there was something, there was dark and then there was light. Then there became masculine and feminine. And then it's as if consciousness splits off into multiplicity, experiencing itself as separate in every crevice of the universe. And now at this moment in evolution, we're turning back towards the Purusha, towards the one mind, towards the unitive consciousness. And the way that we do so is alchemically working with the illusion of duality. The great Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, did a lot of work on the Aquarian age, and I absolutely love him. I'm also a Jungian counselor, and he called it the syzygy. He defined the inner masculine as the anima and the animus, and that the unification or the conjunction of opposites is what created the oversoul. So we have this capacity to achieve the dissolution of the separate self back into the one by working in our relationship paradigms, our relationship patterns, our relationship constructs. It becomes the platform to burn through all the illusions of separation. So I call Libra the sacred mirror. And as I mentioned, I like to really just lean in and emphasize, over and over, really, so that we really get the energetics and sort of the math that's coming through these concepts, through the codes. The fish are swimming in opposite directions. But if you look at ancient texts, they are connected by a golden cord, when in fact they were never separate at all. And so in Libra, it's as if the fish turn and face each other and recognize each other in the mirror as fractals of the one source, which is why relationship dynamics become so powerful, like the alchemical cauldron to burn through the illusions, because there is nothing outside of us. And so, the big joke in our house is it's easy to be enlightened by yourself on top of a mountain. Get into a relationship dynamic and everything is revealed, the good and the bad and the ugly. And certainly we get to choose who we pull into our inner sphere. But if we want to start utilizing what's right in front of us as the material to achieve the philosopher's stone alchemically, then we draw back the illusion and the projection that we're separate. And we recognize that whatever vibrational construct or frequency is within is the exact vibrational match for what we're pulling in from the outside. The soul knows it can only evolve so far alone. That's what we know with the first 6 signs. We get to Libra. And we can go much further together. Not only are we more powerful, we're just, logistically working, but on a soul level, on a vibrational level, on a frequency level, this is the platform to burn through all of the illusions of the ego. So the soul here can seek balance. And if we want to really work in these realms, we see that we have evolved out of the conventional paradigm of relationships which is sort of dying with the patriarchy, where it's sort of like the message was, you're going to make me happy, give me security, and we'll be together forever. Amen. Right? That's the contract. The contract now, as things have changed so dramatically, the evolutionary relationship contract is, my commitment is to my own soul's evolution, and I will serve your soul's evolution. So long as we're healing, evolving, and growing, it could be forever, but that is not the intent. And so, because essentially from the one mind perspective, there is nothing or no one outside. So we're all sharing a shared field. And if we can hold a wide bandwidth of compassion while the unconscious aspects of our being are emerging, the shadow, the wounds, and not taking it personally, and seeing that actually they're not even that person's shadow, they're collective shadow, because we're coming through thousands of years of darkness, and being separated from the light created a lot of distortion, a lot of abuse, a lot of trauma, a lot of confusion. So we're standing right now on this cusp with this opportunity to burn through all of this, and relationships are going to be one of our most powerful containers to do so. Every archetype has a spectrum of light and shadow, as we know. And so, Libra is oriented towards union. Aries is all about me. It's like, I am separate from source, right? The beginning. Libra is like, no, it's about us. It's about we. And there's this holy desire for sacred union. It's the hero's gamos. It's like knowing that we can taste God through another, because we get to experience that dissolution of separateness in sacred union. The shadow of Libra, though, Libra is the diplomat, the counselor, the mediator, the peacekeeper, the yes girl, wanting to keep the balance at any cost, willing to do so at the cost of our own self-respect, our own truth. So conceding your truth, over harmonizing, you can call this codependency, avoidance of truth, also victim mentality, somebody's doing something to me. And it can ultimately end in a feeling of powerlessness. And I use this image of aspen trees because it so beautifully articulates the image of how we might want to hold our interconnectedness, the balance of me and we, not meshing and merging and losing self, and not being so overly egotistic that you don't let anyone in, or you don't care about anybody else and their feelings, which is the shadow of Aries. They're aspen trees. They're separate trees, but yet they share a root system. And so it's really, really important at this time on the planet, as we're looking at, what are we birthing? So of course, a solar eclipse, now to bring it all together, is a new moon. It's a birth of a new cycle in Aries. So you can scan your life, your environment, and say, where am I out of balance? This is where you would look at your own personal chart. Where is the eclipse falling? What house? Or it could be, I'm birthing a new cycle of relationships. Let's say, for example, it's in the third house, a new way of communicating, Gemini. I'm going to start to speak my truth more. Or perhaps if you're too far to the other end of the spectrum, I'm going to start listening to other people's opinions and take that into account. Another really, really important aspect of these eclipses is that I'm speaking mostly at this moment about how it affects us personally, but it affects us collectively as well. And this is the axis of war. And here we are at the cusp between the two ages, where we've already established that it's typical that we enter into these global disputes. And it feels important now more than ever to balance out this archetypal axis of Libra, peace and harmony, justice, the scales, and Aries, the warrior, the future. The shadow is also violence and aggression and war. But what is the shadow of Libra collectively? It's complacency. It's wanting everything to be lovely and beautiful all the time and looking away. It's the American Beauty myth. And so that is like collective suicide right now. So we're all being asked, where are we going to sleep? It feels so much like calling all warriors. And this is the eclipse that we'll be building to in April with the solar eclipse in Aries. Libra wants things to be comfortable and beautiful all the time, but that's not exactly possible right now at this moment in evolution. So when we're zipping our lip or, conceding our truth or going along with a herd mentality, we are not doing our part in the collective evolution. And that's very important that we think about that. The future of mankind depends very much on the recognition of the shadow. Carl Jung, exactly my point, right? So we need to be really honest with ourselves. Where do we fall in this spectrum of me and we? Do we need to be more harmonious, more compromising, more giving? Do we need to be more autonomous and access our fire and our passion and our leadership and our truth and stand up for ourselves and for our world? This is what they call the great work in Hermeticism, the magnum opus, where you can see the image there with the unification of duality with the masculine and the feminine creates the cauda pavonis, the peacock feathers, which is the state of enlightenment. This is how we transmute dark into light. And Libra is an incredibly important archetype right now, not just because of the eclipses, but because it is the first decan that we travel through in this new age of Aquarius. So as we're trying to demystify the journey and the path and which direction to go, again, we look at the archetypes. So if we know that there's 3 decans in each sign, they're breaking the sign into 3 quadrants, 3 sections. And we know that the ages are 2,000 plus years long. That means that the first 700 years of Aquarius is Libra. So again, I can't emphasize enough that every single dynamic that we pull in and that we attract, whether it's, you know, your mother-in-law or your neighbor or your boss or your sacred partner, to practice seeing through the one mind. Why am I triggered by this person? Why do I love this person and can't stand this person? And get curious at what is it inside of us that needs to be harmonized, to be healed, to be addressed, for where we might need to be honest with ourselves. This is the personal and collective alchemy. And the more that we're able to do this with 2-on-2, because Libra is the mirror, 2 people, that frequency of unification will trickle out into the collective field. If 2 people can't harmonize, how are we ever going to harmonize the planet? We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. So remember, you're a projection screen and you're the writer, producer, actor, and director of your own film. So if we don't like what we're seeing out here, the work is within. And when enough of us turn our awareness internally and shift our dynamics, balance our light and our dark, our masculine and our feminine, remove the obstacles to flow of light within, get access to the higher frequencies by turning the channel onto that vibration, and start amplifying love, compassion, light, joy, then that is going to be what is projected onto the collective screen. So we are at a tipping point, and the separation of the timelines is happening dramatically right now. I don't know if you've noticed, but instant karma is upon us, and we cannot get away with spirit being spiritually apathetic right now. Everything counts. Okay, so now we're going to take a look here at the second lunation, the lunar eclipse at 6 degrees Taurus, which will be 2 weeks, obviously, after the solar eclipse, October 28th. And we have a new moon with a solar eclipse, therefore it is a full moon at the lunar eclipse. So this is the end of a cycle. This is a culmination point. And as I mentioned, the transiting nodal axis shifted into Aries and Libra in July. It had been in Taurus Scorpio for the previous year and a half. So therefore all the eclipses were in Taurus Scorpio. And this is the last eclipse of that season, of that cycle. So we can kind of think of it as like the grand finale or the final chapter. So let's talk a little bit about Taurus. I call Taurus the holy temple. It is an earth sign, the archetype of the artist priestess in archetypal astrology. And so she rules the earth and all things of the earth. So all of her beauties, all of her creations, all of the things where we derive pleasure has to do with creativity and the arts and music. It's basically all the things that we want. It's all the things that we love. Taurus is also the physical body. So the holy temple of the physical vessel. And really under that understanding of the holiness and the sacredness of all of the earth realm. And, so when we think about Taurus, we think about, what is it that we find most beautiful, we find most attractive, most important, what stands the test of time, what do we want to hold on to and to preserve? What do we value? And, here's a lovely image of, the body being, again, the architecture of divinity, bringing that heavenly energy down into form. And the more that we're able to really activate that within, the more that we are going to accelerate our ascension process. And so we know that this body as temple, where all of the energies intersect. And then, of course, the electrical system, the true technology, our greatest technology within, our Kundalini energy, which is our chakra system. And this is something that has really been highlighted or accelerated as far as the awakening of this Kundalini energy, which is the divine spark within, since Uranus moved into Taurus, something that we've been working with. So essentially, this Taurus energy is about our relationship to ourself and ourself as the earth element, ourself as Mother Earth, ourself as our physical body, ourself as far as all the tangible resources that we derive value from, that we want to preserve. And as an earth sign and all the things beautiful, finances and the economy is very much related. So the question becomes, let's look back over the last year and a half as what has been the story with the nodes being in Taurus and Scorpio. So they say that that the Buddha was a Taurus. And we know that Buddhism is all about what? Non-attachment. So the shadow of Taurus becomes, too much of a good thing, wanting like this gluttonous sort of hungry ghost energy and wanting to hoard, wanting to take from her resources, ending up polluting the earth, polluting the body because of this lack of reverence, this lack of understanding of the cycles of life and balance. It's also it's unhealthy attachment in our relationships as well. This is also an axis of relationships. And so we look at the polarity point, we look at where the South Node has been during this season of Taurus, Scorpio over the last year and a half, where all the eclipses were, and say, well, what is it that we've been required to let go of? What is it that we did not see? Scorpio is the shadow of the underworld. What are the hidden parts from me of where maybe I have been taking too much, or maybe I have had my desires and my wants in life out of alignment with what's the best for the greater good. We're coming out again of that Pisces age of a hierarchical program where it was just about keeping up with the Joneses and, the accumulation of wealth, capitalism, and all about, self-serving our desires, asleep to our unitive consciousness, our organismic consciousness, where what we do, what we desire, what we take, and what we preserve affects the whole organism. So it's essentially materialism. And Taurus, is earth sign, very, very strong and solid and here to help preserve things. When out of balance, it is stuck. It's stubborn. It does not want to let go of anything. And Scorpio, the mantra is to surrender. So I think we all have probably realized by now that we cannot evolve on this global scale until we take a look, in the cellar, and our authentic relationship to this polarity of what is most important to us, what do we value, and what are we willing to sacrifice for that? So it has everything to do with our personal relationship to ourself, our self-worth, our self-value, which becomes a vibrational match to the resources that we're able to attract in, also to the light or shadow that we're attracting in, because everything is a frequency and has a magnetic relationship. And so this particular lunation is that full moon where there's a surrendering and a letting go. We get a chance to write the final chapter. We get a chance to take a look honestly about where have we been out of balance? Where have we wanted things to just stay comfortable and beautiful? And I spoke about this in the beginning a bit. This, in my opinion, is contributing to like collective suicide because we're in such a place where we've been overtaking from the earth. We have been over resourcing from the natural elements. And we have all had to get a awakening, a shock of awakening as we're between the ages and the food disappears off the shelves. You know, the economy is in this position of transformation, avoiding the word collapse, but, you know, I guess time will tell. And we're having to really renegotiate what's most important and to choose our alliances and where we put our energy and our focus and our intention and our own energy and resources to create the new world or to uphold the old world, because we're very addicted and comfortable and apathetic because we're reliant on the very system that is leeching our life force, and we can't have it both ways, right? So this Taurus energy is about this redefinition of self, self-worth, self-value. Where do we need to be honest with ourselves? Where have we been out of balance? Where have we been putting our head in the sand? And when we rewrite or recalibrate the relationship to our essential divinity within, then that changes the mirror and that energy that we attract from the outside with Libra. So there's this direct correlation between Taurus and Libra, both ruled by Venus. So that just brings us to wrapping things up here and just wondering, like, where do we go from here? So first of all, remembering that during these eclipse portals, we have this opportunity to break free, to find liberation from whatever has kept us stuck, whatever has kept us small, whatever has kept us asleep. And if we focus in and use our integrity, our mindfulness, our honesty within the constructs of our own life and our participation in the collective creation, co-creation of our world, we have a chance to create magic. We have a chance to have opportunities fall in our lap. We have opportunities to break free from patterns that we have felt, constricted by for a long time. And looking at all the different faces of humanity. I love this image. All the different people in our life through the one mind, that we're all spectrums of the rainbow. So wherever there's disharmony, wherever there is chaos in your relationship field, that is where the work is. I know that it's easy to recognize the light in those that you love, and yet right now it feels like we're really needing to shine the light in the shadow with those that are having the hardest time. Compassion and patience, that everybody is on this journey right now, and the energy is becoming more and more dense, more and more chaotic, because again, we are about to go through this next level of alchemical transformation, which is about disintegration. The consensus mindset that has stayed a part of the machine is going to continue to be destabilized. And if you're a healer or you're on a path of service in some way, be ready and know that the healers and the light workers will be even more needed and even more valued. So if you're someone that needs to take the leap, out of the corporate world, trust that in the new earth, these are the resources that will bring you the sustainability and the abundance, because we're about to go through cataclysmic change. You can already feel the plates are shifting. So we have to trust the process. We have to access the higher laws and the higher tools, which a lot of them come from this being able to hold neutrality and duality, removing the obstructions to the flow of light within, trusting the process, certainly, seeing that nothing is outside of you, seeing through the one mind. Seeing through the self as other lens is an essential principle for the healing of our world. In this, we not only may harmonize our personal relations, which as a result creates more equilibrium in our world, but we also accelerate our own evolutionary journey. So waking up out of that illusion of separation, seeing everyone through the eyes of love, through the eyes of compassion. And we have arrived here at this time of the new dawn. These simultaneous universes are happening. They are intersecting in the ever-present now, and we get to participate on whatever level we're committed to with the focused intent of our mind and our frequency. So we need to expect to feel that the waves of the light will increase, as will the darkness, that humanity is splitting into parallel realities, and it's happening at a dramatic rate, especially in the last couple of months. And now that we're in the eclipse portal, expect that to amplify even more. Therefore, the intensity and the potency increases. So I am seeing over and over the magic that's available, instant manifestation. Whenever you just turn to the right frequency, we're finding each other. We're all speaking this same universal truth, and that's the validation you need to keep going, to keep believing, to keep wielding your magic. Integrity to the natural and higher laws is an absolute must. No apathy is going to get us anywhere. It's going to put a block or an obstruction to the flow of light. Ever since Saturn moved into Pisces, this year also in March, Saturn will reward us for the discipline to the light. I don't care for the word discipline so much, so we call it devotion. Devotion to be an agent of the new world. We do have to face the darkness, but we have to understand that, remember, we can't have summer without winter, and that with every out-breath comes an in-breath. Practical devotion opens doorways. So if we see every day as the choice to take our sovereignty, to live in the frequency of love and joy and devotion, opens the doorway to the fifth dimension. If we wake up in the morning, not on the right side of the bed, we feel like a victim, we're aggravated with everyone, we're blaming, we're perpetuating the division, we feel powerless, then we get to experience the hell realm. That is how simple it is. It is truly our choice. Heaven and hell are states of consciousness, and we can experience them both in one day. Seeing relationship as the holy crucible, I went into that in depth. Definitely getting support if you need it. I absolutely love to work with couples that have hit a threshold or a gate. We see them as gates, as initiations. You don't get to pass through to the next level to enter the garden until you know the codes, until you face the demons and the tricksters that stand and protect this new journey, this new doorway or this new hallway that you're entering. Walk your talk, be in organismic consciousness. And we are definitely calling all warriors. I mean, this eclipse that's coming in April, we have to remember that birth is an active process. And we cannot just sit back and stay in our illusion that everything's going to be comfortable and expect Amazon Prime to bring our every whim to our doorstep every day anymore. We have to be activated to contribute. And we contribute what lights us up. You don't have to do all of it. You don't have to grow a garden and get, basically be self-sustainable. We are moving towards sustainability, but this is where working in communities becomes so important. Buy your vegetables and your fruit from your local farmer and figure out what is your gift to plug in to the organism and put your focus there. And the beautiful thing is that the question becomes what gives you the most pleasure, because the shift in timelines is about frequency. What gives you joy? What gives you pleasure? What keeps you in a high emotional state? And follow that. Because essentially what we're called to do right now is to restore the temple, the holy temple, the earth temple, the bodily temple with the light, with the sacredness. And the way that we do that is with every day, with every choice, with every thought, focusing on the higher frequencies of love and compassion and forgiveness and unity. So this is when we say we're calling all warriors. This is what we're preserving here. The holiness of life, the holiness of the Mother Earth, the holiness of existence itself. The rainbow will be in the cloud, God said to Noah. This is the sign of the covenant which I've established between myself and every living creature on the earth. Follow the rainbow light. It is within and it is without. Focus on it, meditate on it. And more than ever, we have to let go of any illusion of fear. We have to take the leap and know that there is no ground. And ultimately, this is where I love my Buddhist background, remembering that it's all a play of the mind. Keep your humor and your wits about you. And remember, we've got this. Through the technology of happiness, this is our liberation. Just following what brings you pleasure. And hopefully someday we will get to dance with you in person. So thank you so much for your presence. Thank you for being on the path, awake. Thank you for being a part of the shift. This was made with so much love from Russell and I, and we hope to see you in April down deep in the heart of Texas with us.
It's gonna feel real good, gonna make a difference, gonna make it right.
Okay, this is why I shouldn't have let y'all talk me into doing pop songs in church. Now, don't you bring all that Mariah Christina messed up in here. I don't care about hearing you. I want to hear God through you.
As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their need? A summer's disregard, a broken bottle top, and a one-man soul. They follow each other on the wind, you know, 'cause they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change.